Hello, welcome to Girl Phoenix. I'm Whitney Walker, and I'm here to help you survive almost anything. I've been through pretty much everything you can go through. I'll be 65 in a few days, and I think it's time that I shared some of my tips to survival with some of my younger girlfriends and male friends. I've been on a long path. And I started college in 10th grade. I started my first business at 17. I was in the Italian restaurant business for a while. That was very bizarre. I was in manufacturing for over 25 years. I founded a company, and I had between 50 or 60 and 200 employees for 23 of those years. The business was burned to the ground. My 45,000 square foot manufacturing facility was burned to the ground. So that's, by the way, a 6-alarm fire, 150 fire people. And then we built it back, only 2 years later to be hit with the recession of 2010. That lasted for a couple of years. It really started in about August of 2008. And when it started, we went from weekly sales of 250,000 to weekly sales of 5,000. At that time, with about 160 employees on board. It was pretty horrifying. We made a major shift in the business when the internet came along, and we went from selling retail to selling internet, and selling to designers nationwide, and selling wholesales to a lot of retail stores that are not even open anymore. So we made what's called the Hermes buggy whip shift, where you go from making high-end gear for the horse and carriage trade to leather goods that sell for a fortune, and you keep moving. Your business model just keeps moving. I have been to 52 countries. I've probably lived the life of 100 men. I've been dead twice and brought back to life. I've been hospitalized or had day surgery 28 times. I've had 5 major head injuries, which may explain a lot of things. And at the end of the day, I still had a really good time. And there's a lot of ways to understand, when you get to this age, how to survive and thrive and really enjoy the ride. There will always be drama on this silly little planet that we live on. Human beings are the most nonsensical things on earth. And how we live and how we run our politics and how we run our governments and our destruction of the planet are just all part of who we are as our basic personalities as humans. And once you realize that you can let go of all that and you can choose your own path, and with that path, you choose your own sanity, your own reality, and most importantly, you choose not to be distracted by what you have or don't have, or what other people have or don't have. And one of the most important tips for surviving almost any drama, be it fire, flood, fraud, freaks, 40 countries of factory visits, the IRS, nothing like a good audit. So anyway, all of these things, there's always a frame of reference. And for me, the first tip to survival is to understand that there's always someone that has a worse situation than I do. And there are so many axioms for this that it's just ridiculous. There's no reason to even waste time on it. The concept that don't complain about your shoes because there's a man with no legs is the truth. And so many Americans live in such a small, small planet, and they don't realize that if you live in Europe, you're surrounded by 4 or 5 or 8 countries that are so small that you all have to get along together with completely different cultures. And if you spend a lot of time in India, of which I've been there over 60 times, then you understand as a huge nation that has multiple religions and multiple philosophies, and that they all find a way to interact together and mostly survive pretty well. I've been to Italy over 40 times. Manja. It's my favorite country besides the US, of course. And what I found is that the love of great beauty will help you survive through some of the hardest times. And most importantly, the understanding that you choose your path, you choose what you'll be distracted by, you choose who you will spend time with, and you choose where you'll be and where you want to be and where you don't want to be. You make those choices. Every little thing you do in your life is a decision. And at the end of the day, you can look at all of those decisions together and see where they bring you. And so if you try to use what I have, which is a 100-year plan, which may not be appropriate for young people today because they may live to 125 or, oh gosh knows, 250. But if you look at a 100-year plan and look at your life that way, then you realize that in your 20s, dating or being married is not as important when you're going to have the next 60 years to be with somebody. You may realize that in your 30s, spending a lot of time on your business might not be quite as important, or in your 40s, as spending time with your children. So if you look at that long span of 100 years, and I sit here, a few days away from 65, and I remember being with my grandmother when she was in her 80s and spending time with her. She was a very good businesswoman, and listening to her talk about the concept of you are who you are inside no matter what your age is. So when you're 15 or 20, you feel 15 or 20, and you choose a mental age. I chose a mental age of 29, sort of a mental psychological age. I know a lot of people think I might be 5 or 6, but that's a different issue. And if sooner or later you come up with a point, which is, this is how I'm going to choose to think of myself. I'm going to think of myself as a 29-year-old. Even if I'm 65, I'm going to think of myself that way. And I remember getting dressed for dinner and being in the dressing room with my grandmother and saying, "Oh, grandmother, I look so old." And my grandmother was like, just standing there at 83, and laughed and said, "We all feel like we're teenagers, no matter what. And you will until the day you pass away." So I sit here looking back on all of the mistakes I've made in my life and all the great decisions I've made and all the things that made me the happiest. And I'd like to share those with you. We'll start the series soon.